Good Sunday evening, high school sports fans. Joe Gillaway with Lingelstown Gazette Sports live from the Orchard Street studio. And this is our high school football week one recap show. I'm joined tonight by a new friend of mine, Mr. Travis Waters, who I just met over the weekend. I guess we first started talking maybe Friday, and then I met him Saturday at the game in person. And he agreed to jump in and help us break down some high school football. So thank you for joining us, Travis. We'll get you in here in just a second after we thank our sponsors for tonight's show: Rickaba's Electric, Payer Apparel, Ted's Bar and Grill, Freedom Financial, Wealth Management, Tonino's Pizza, Crystal Bob at Howard Hanna Real Estate, Team PA, AAU Basketball, Sam Hartley Decking, Lingelstown American Legion, Post 272, Hoffman Ford, The Tire Mart, Modern Imprint, Capital Region Insurance Agency, and Underdog Sports Bar and Grill. Thank you to all those great local businesses for their continued support of Lingelstown Gazette Sports and our student athletes. And believe it or not, we are still looking for sponsors. I mean, we have a bunch, and they don't go away, but we could always use new sponsors for our upcoming 2024-2025 school year coverage. We have big plans to do a lot of new stuff, and it does cost a little bit. It does have a price tag to it. So we could also use a few more team members, meaning student interns and others who may enjoy helping us cover high school sports. And before we move forward here, this coming Tuesday, I have the Susquehanna Township guys join us. Coach Joe Heaton and two of his players, Lex Cyrus and Mason Lubold. Big win for them on Saturday. We're going to discuss that momentarily. And then I'm looking to set a date for our first, what we're going to call our Legends shows. We have Jimmy Jones joining us, legendary Harrisburg, John Harris at the time, quarterback, USC, just a legend, one of the top athletes ever to come out of the Harrisburg area. He still lives in the Harrisburg area. He and I discussed him being a guest maybe a week or two ago. We're just trying to get a date for Jimmy Jones. So anyway, let me bring in Travis Waters once again. How you doing, Travis?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you joining us. And talk a little bit about kind of your history in the Harrisburg area, your history with high school sports.
So I graduated from Susquehanna Township High School in '88. Played football at Susquehanna Township. Been following, local sports, largely all sports. I was superintendent at Stilton High Spire School District, so definitely I taught there, principal there, so I was definitely familiar with, a lot of the sports and at Stilton High Spire, but also, even being from Susquehanna Township, my dad played for John Harris, graduated from in 1961 actually with Harry Chapman. Harry Chapman was the quarterback on my dad's team. My dad was one of the halfbacks. So I just grew up going to Cougar football games, even back with the big rivalries back Harrisburg and Stilton, everybody everybody in the town, everybody in the city, everybody in Stilton and High Spire were at that game.
Everything froze.
That's right.
Whatever was going on for those 2 or 3 hours, everybody went to the stadium and left all their other affairs aside.
I remember people getting haircuts and outfits just for the game. Right. I also coached. I was assistant coach in Harrisburg under Coach Mike Elby, and actually Calvin Everett, the current coach, was with the running back when I was coaching there in Harrisburg. So it's been just been following Harrisburg sports and high school football in general in this area for a long time.
Good. Okay. And let me get this out of the way for what it's worth. It's probably worth nothing at all. I refer to the first week of high school football as week one. And a lot of people, I think it's kind of like a sexy term to use, week zero. Week zero, and again, this is just kind of something to kind of banter over or debate. But week zero refers to the opening weekend of college football games, which would have been yesterday. There was 4 games, and that's how they originally brought the term aboard. And it has to do with all the Division I or FBS games. Delaware State and Hawaii, SMU, Nevada, Montana State, and New Mexico, FSU, Georgia Tech. They played week 0 games yesterday. Week 1 for college will be next week. So anyway,
it's the game that I watched, Florida A&M and Norfolk State, which is a great game. 1-point victory for Florida A&M.
Was that a good game, huh?
Great game, yes.
Okay, so let's I told you when you were in the green room, they call that the green room when we're sitting there waiting to go on, that I was going to break all broadcast rules and start with Harrisburg LaSalle College. Typically, you kind of hold that the most interesting topic back a little bit, but I think it's interesting enough to start right away. If I have some viewers that want to see that, I don't want to lose them. So LaSalle College, who, for what it's worth, they were unranked in the state in 6A. And maybe they must have gotten it wrong because they're obviously a top 10 team in the state. But they came into Severance Field and just kind of took it to Harrisburg, 45-7. Harrisburg was ranked number 4 in the state. Of course, they had just found out, Harrisburg did, and I don't want to keep kind of hammering on this, but they had just found out officially that they lost their quarterback, Sean Lee Jr. I would imagine, I know Cal Everett, I know he's a kind of a king of preparation, and I would imagine that he had worked with the new quarterback to a degree that he should have been ready. I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, hey man, get in there. Here's the ball." We don't have our quarterback that we wanted to have. So, but that kind of, to me, was glaring that, and you saw the game, Travis. I thought that they missed everything about Sean Lee. I mean, obviously his prowess on the field, offensively, defensively, but it looked to me like the team was kind of looking around for a leader. They kind of got out of kilter. They lost their energy. They had a lot of energy running onto the field. And then once the game started, I didn't see the energy there anymore. And I think they missed a guy like Sean Lee Jr. just to kind of say, come on, guy, maybe a smack upside the helmet or in the butt or whatever, and just say, let's get back on track here. What did you see there?
Well, I could tell you, I know Coach Kai is a great coach, and it was clear to me that, I think this young man was prepared. Actually, if you look at it, they actually had Jalen Lewis, who played quarterback as well. And all three of them, both of them knew the offense. But you're talking about 3 people who were probably splitting reps, not knowing what's going to happen, right, and then not having a scrimmage the week before to kind of work out any kinks to really see what you're working with at game speed. And then I'll say this young man, he has a good arm. He can throw the football. Completed some passes. Ball sailed on him a couple times. But I think where they miss Sean Lee the most is, they would run that read option, and Sean Lee could be devastating when he pulled the ball down.
Right.
That was a missing element from the offense yesterday. So I think you could probably do that. I know you can do that with Jalen Lewis. I saw that yesterday because he had some really positive plays when he came in to play quarterback. Just going to have to find their identity. I'm not surprised that they lost, maybe by as much as they did, but we've seen this movie before. I remember they went to the state championship against the first time they played St. Joe's Prep. They got blown out by Coatesville at Severance Field the first game of the season, came back and beat Coatesville in the state playoffs. They got blown out last year by Manheim Township. I was at that game, a hot game like it was yesterday, came back and beat Manheim Township, and I think people have been saying this for years, Harrisburg gets better as the season goes on. And I just think, and losing a player the caliber of Sean, you got to think he was a quarterback for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
No one really got much time other than him because he was that good. I mean, he probably knew the offense inside and out. Like you said, he's a leader.
All-state defensive back too. Absolutely. For those who don't know, because what gets thrown around there is that Harrisburg, they don't have their quarterback. He was an all-state defensive back.
Absolutely. And whenever he played, probably the best athlete on the field.
Absolutely.
Fast and tough. So that's going to be a big loss. They're just going to have to find themselves. I honestly think that that could go over the game, but I honestly think that Harrisburg is going to be okay. I know people can be tough, and people are probably saying Harrisburg is overrated, but Harrisburg is going to be okay.
I agree with you, and you brought up a great segue, because the next thing I wanted to mention, and you mentioned two of the seasons. Well, first of all, Calvin Everett to me is the best around at bringing a team along, because if you're a coach, you want to bring your team along. You don't want to be the best in the first 2-3 weeks of the season. You want to be the best in the last 2-3 weeks of the season, and we've seen them do that. But 2016, Harrisburg lost to McDevitt in week 1, 28-12, ended up going to the 5A state championship against Archbishop Wood. 2018, I believe this is the one you mentioned, they lost to Coatesville in week 1, 37-6, ended up going to the 6A state championship, including a state semifinal win over Coatesville, who had already beaten them. 2022 lost to Manheim Township in week 2, 24-20, went to the 6A state championship, where they beat Manheim Township convincingly, 44-6. And then last year they lost to Manheim Township, you mentioned, in week 3. It was still, though, a non-league game, an early non-league game. They lost 38-6. They went on to the state semifinals after beating Manheim Township in an epic, man, that was one heck of a game to watch.
That was amazing. That was an amazing game, because that was a very good Manheim Township game.
Absolutely.
Manheim Township team, very well coached, and the quarterback, receivers, they're just well coached.
Kind of a coming out party, and you and I have known about Elias Koch for a number of years now, but Koch made the big play down the stretch.
Made two big plays down the stretch.
Yeah, two big. You're right. Yeah, the one in the corner of the end zone was the. I don't know. Help me out here, but there was there's
a touchdown and 2-point conversion, I believe.
That's right. You're right. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. So anyway, we best wishes to Harrisburg moving forward. We just talked to Coach Cal Everett the last 2 Sundays, last Sunday and the Sunday before, on some shows, and he doesn't show his hand. He kind of keeps his hand to himself, which I believe good coaches usually do. But I wouldn't think that he was probably overly optimistic going into that game. He knew there were some question marks on defense. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to flip out and throw stuff around the locker room either. I think he's going to say, let's have a good week of practice and get a W against McDevitt.
No, I think that I think what it shows is that when you had those early season losses in big games, and I think it's outstanding, coach, that you're able to get your guys back together, keep them level, and make the necessary adjustments over the season. I honestly think, defensively, I think people can look at, okay, they got 45 points scored on them, but they're going to be a good defense. I think, if you watch the game, I think they actually did really well against the run.
Yes, they did.
They did really well against the run. I think, just like last year, they're going to have to find a way to generate a little more of a pass rush. But you're just not going to run up and down the field on Harrisburg. They're solid against the run. I was over there holding the sticks for the game, and I think that side was a little frustrated with their running game, because Harrisburg was able to. They just gave up too much in the pass game. They had a 4th and 15, which resulted in a touchdown and a missed tackle.
What a play! That was the dagger, man. I mean, that was right when, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was right when Harrisburg was on the precipice of, hey, we can stick around here and maybe be able to get a W out of this. And that kind of sent things the other direction.
And they had their first 2 punts were probably less than 20 yards, and they set they set them up in Harrisburg territory. Right. But honestly, I think one of the biggest plays was actually Harrisburg was down 10-7, and they were driving, and they were probably around the LaSalle College 30-something yard line, and they got an 8-yard run at 2nd and 2, and they went to the air and got a pass interference call. I think if they would have kept the ball on the ground, I really think they may have been able to punch that in. It would have been a closer game. I'm definitely not going to say they would have won. I think Harrisburg was gassed at the end. They just you got the one. They gave one touchdown up. Quincy Brannon playing, and the kid caught cramps. I mean, he's caught him right in front of me, and I mean, the cramps just launched him in the air, man. It's both, and look at her in both legs, So. It's like, again, they've done that. They've done this before. I will say this: I love black, but they might want to leave those black uniforms in the locker room.
That's the third time you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to ask you that, and you're not the only person, Travis, that mentioned that. 2 or 3 people said to me, "I don't know if I would be playing with the black." I had a friend say to me yesterday. We were talking later at night. He goes, "It really wasn't that hot out." and I don't think it was. I think it was only low 80s. It was hot down on that field.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I was
You know?
exhausted when I got home. Yes, it
Oh my
was. Yes.
goodness. Because you figure all that is cement or macadam or whatever, covered with like a thin layer of plastic, really, the artificial surface. And then you got blacktop the whole way around it and aluminum bleachers. So that whole area and very little breeze. You got the school on one side. The bleachers are really high on the home side. So it wasn't pleasant in there, but it wasn't pleasant for LaSalle either.
It
And
wasn't that both teams caught cramps. You know
right,
that
yeah,
both teams caught cramps. It was hot down there. I will say this: LaSalle has some outstanding receivers. The routes they were running were
yeah.
were special. Those kids could play.
That first one was right in front of me. I almost had to jump out of the way. The guy ran like a little swing pattern and came up to, and it was just a perfect pattern into the corner of the end zone and a perfect pass. And I knew right then and there that they had an offensive kind of arsenal that was going to be a challenge for Harrisburg. And that's a brand new coach too over there for LaSalle.
And they're a well coached team.
Yeah,
they're a well coached
right.
team.
So let's wish them well moving forward, Harrisburg. And what about the game I'm not much of a prediction guy. They play at McDevitt on Saturday, and I'm not asking you for a prediction, but that's to me that's I don't use the term. I cover a lot of high school sports, and very rarely do I use the term epic. But it's kind of like an epic matchup, and a lot of it has to do with they just haven't been able to connect over the last handful of years. It's been some years since they played one another.
Yes, that's going to be an interesting game. Again, McDevitt's McDevitt. They bring kids in. They have tremendous talent every year, and unlike some of the other like public schools, they can reload a little differently with kids. So they're always going to be good.
Right.
So I'm expecting a good game. But again, I think Harrisburg is definitely going to have to find their identity on offense because, again, I'm going back to you say there's 45 points scored on them, but sometimes the offense contributes to some of those points being scored. So
right, leaving the defense in bad field position,
not leaving the defense on the field too much.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
And it's always when you're reacting versus when you're acting on defense. I always thought you were using more energy. So
yeah. So that McDevitt won. They were a winner yesterday against Mount St. Joseph from Baltimore, 45-15. And admittedly, I don't know too much about Mount St. Joseph, but I would say whether they're very good or very bad, a 30-point win is pretty good. Week
one, absolutely, because everybody has some kinks to work out.
Right. Yeah.
So, some more than others, but everyone has kinks to work on. And McDevitt has a lot of new guys, so that's an impressive win.
Yep.
For them.
Yes,
no
it
matter
is.
who they're playing. I don't know anything about that team, but I would imagine they're probably a solid team.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah. That was at the York Rose Bowl, which is the brainchild of York Suburban Athletic Director Ron Coursey. Mr. Coursey, one of the better ADs in the business, and at least in this state. He really he puts a lot of focus on trying to make things a little bit different, a little more exciting than just the typical let's play a game. And so there was 6 different games there. Friday, Imhotep Charter 38, Clarkson North 20. They were out of Ontario, Canada. Kind of took Imhotep a little while to put that game away, but they did put it away. And did you see them last year in the state championship?
Yes, I did. Yes.
My gosh, what a juggernaut that was.
Yeah.
So I think they might have probably found their wings. I mean, they lost a lot of state championship games, and credit them for getting there. It's hard to get there, but once you win one like that, you kind of know what it feels like, and you're ready to go into the next season feeling like a winner and knowing how to close games out. And then we had Southwestern over the host York Suburban 36-6. Amani Christian 45, West Catholic 6. Susquehanna Township and Coach Joe Heeden, our friend Joe Heeden, 36, Penn Hills 30. Susquehanna Township, that's your school. They are it's so early, but they have a chance to get to a District 3 Class 4A championship game this year. Wyomissing might be that team standing in the way. And I'm certainly not going to ask them about it on Tuesday because we're heading into week 2. But a big win for Heeden and his guys. How about it?
Yeah, Penn Hills is usually they've been a tough team in the past. I remember the year McDevitt won the Double A state championship in '95. Penn Hills was the Quad A state champion. I remember they had two
Yeah.
studs at running back that year. And it's a bigger school. You know, it's kind of like I was talking to someone who went to Susquehanna Township. We were at the gym on Saturday before the game, and we say, "Hey, Penn Hills kind of reminds us of a larger Susquehanna Township." But Susquehanna Township, even going back to the '80s, we've always had athletes. I think the question always is up front. What's going to happen up front?
Right.
If they have the horses up front, Susquehanna Township will make noise.
That's what makes a difference. You're right. You know, especially when you have skill position players that you can't protect, or skill position players that you can't get the ball to because you can't let the quarterback have time to get it to him.
That's
And,
right.
and you're totally right. And the one game, and I have marked on my calendar, and just because it's a kind of a cool matchup, is Steel High and Susquehanna Township. They are playing later in the season, but that Colonial Division's no joke now, Travis.
Yeah, I don't like that game. I'll be honest, I don't like that game. I don't. From a standpoint of Steel High being the size that they are, great athletes, but when you had the talent that they had the last few years, and I understand they had a big win yesterday, there's going to be a drop off, and then playing a school that size every year.
You and I both understand.
Yeah,
I understand exactly what you're
really,
saying.
yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying, and it's a situation where it's hard to get teams together, even with the difference in classification. Put that aside, it's hard to get teams together when both of them are good. You know.
Yeah.
Steel High just had a great run. They're probably dropped off a little bit. I expect Coach Irby to win some games, though. I'm sure you do too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, listen,
it's not a great matchup. It really.
When I say that, understand, I'm not putting Stilton down.
No, I know,
because Stilton kids are some of the toughest kids in the state of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. They're not going to run from anyone. They're going to be competitive, and Coach Irby is a fantastic coach. So he'll have them ready, But it's not. I don't think it's going to be like when you had a Jordan Hill playing when
absolutely not.
Still had those state championship teams, and then they played the Susquehanna teams with Ben Dupree and Taj Turner. So it's going to be a little different, I think.
Yeah. But I think for the locals, it's another maybe not to the extent or the degree of McDevitt Harrisburg, but it's just another one of those games that the locals are going to enjoy having a chance to go see. And you mentioned Ben Dupree. We got this close to having Ben on this show tonight with us. He did a basketball game with us over the winter. He did a great job, of course. Mm-hmm. And he texted me earlier today, and he said he couldn't do it at 6, and he said if you can change the time, and I really couldn't. So we're gonna have we'll bring Ben in for sure, and hopefully he'll stick around and for another couple. As long as you want to stick around, we do these shows all the time. So hats off to Coach Irby Coach Heaton and his guys. And then last night, Central Dauphin East, aka East High, as they prefer to be referred, 40, York William Penn 6. And let me say this, William Penn is not Manheim Township or Central York, okay? But they're not Reading or Northeastern either. The East High has not really had a kind of a stout non-league schedule over the past few years. And this is a legitimate team, York William Penn, and a legitimate win, that's for sure.
Yeah, East is another program where they found an outstanding young coach who's getting kids out. I was at the Harrisburg East game last year. Let me tell you, the young man for East can run that football. He is a heck of a running back.
Porter.
Yeah, those kids at East are not going to be scared of anyone. Their coach is not going to let them be scared of anyone. He's going to have them in excellent shape. He's going to have the schemes are going to be good. They're going to be tough. And I think we can. If you talk about the Mid-Penn Commonwealth, I think they're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the Mid-Penn Commonwealth.
Absolutely, yeah. They definitely moved up. I mean, you still got to like Harrisburg and McDevitt. For sure. And the U.S. just won the Little League World Series. So congrats to them. We don't stray from high school sports much, but that's kind of a big deal. East is in a position where I think they've got 6, 7 wins almost automatic. And yeah, I know you got to play the game, but Central Dolphins down, Altoona, they already won one game. They have Altoona, Chambersburg,
Cumberland Valley.
Carlisle, Cumberland Valley, and we're going to talk just briefly about them, but here in a moment. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of winnable games for Coach Dean and his guys, and I'm not saying that they're going to win games because these teams aren't good. Some of them aren't, but they're going to win games because they are good, because
They're good and well coached.
They have improved, and we just talked about trying to get teams together when they're both good. Central Dauphin and East High, they never play when they're both good. Like it's kind of, did you ever notice that? Yeah. It's the games that Central Dauphin wins, it's usually not that they're not good team, but it's usually because East is down. And then when East beats Central Dauphin, it's usually because Central Dauphin's down. And this year, to me, will be no exception. I think East is going to kind of have their way with Central Dauphin. But Coach Dean, great win, and they start now. They don't play McDevitt, State College, or Harrisburg till the very end of the season. They run into a lot of the teams I just mentioned, the Altoonas, the Carlisle, Chambersburg. So they're going to pile up some wins here, Travis, early on. And I think they can get to about 6 or 7-0 before they really meet the beef of their schedule.
If they do that, and if they come through, healthy, it doesn't matter who you're beating. You beat the teams who are in front of you, and it's going to build your confidence. So,
yep, correct.
They're going to be a problem.
Yep, I agree. So let's just kind of go around. Let's go around the state here a little bit, and admittedly, we had Eric Thomas who was going to join us, and he's kind of he's a statewide guru, but he lives out in Western PA now and covers District 7, the Whippeal, and he left us a couple notes here. Let me just go through that. He said that 1A in District 7 is they're pretty sure out there the best class as far as depth goes. I was chatting with some people earlier today on a high school football kind of chat in a room or a group, and they said that some of their 1A teams out there are better than their 2A and even 3A teams. They have Fort Cherry, Clareton has some statement wins. Neshannock dropped from 2A to 1A. And then he said he wasn't surprised by any of the results out that way, but thought that Mount Lebanon might show some teeth against Upper St. Clair. It got blasted. He said he wouldn't read too much into the Erie McDowell win at the Wolverina, nor would he read too much into McKeesport losing to Uniontown Lake. I believe Uniontown Lake might be out of somewhere in Ohio. Bethel Park in 5A looked awesome without one of its best players. And Central Catholic, who we're going to discuss here in a second, they lost. They kind of got it handed to them. And he said he wouldn't read too much into that game either. And I think
was not a state team that beat them.
Correct? Yeah. And I kind of think that that was St. Francis Academy of Maryland. And I kind of think, Travis, that when he says he wouldn't read into that too much, he probably means that St. Francis team is really good, Yeah. And maybe what happened to them is just what happened to Harrisburg. You just, I don't know. It's one game and it's early on, but St. Joe's Prep was idle. Could the best 3 District 12 teams in 6A be the best 3 District 6A teams statewide? You got I don't know if that came out.
No, I saw they talking about LaSalle, St. Joe's Prep, and that. Eagle Tap, who's in 6A now.
Oh my! Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm going to say it again. It's really early to try to sort through all this, but they are 3 really good. If LaSalle's the 3rd best team of those 3, watch out. But 2 of them have to go away. All 3 of them can't advance even to the state semifinals.
Yeah, that's going to be a gauntlet to get through that. It's almost unfortunate to a degree. You would love to kind of see them spread out a little bit, but it is what it is. I mean, they're the powerhouses, and just you kind of have to go through that gauntlet. And I don't travel too much for high school football, but I might want to see some of those games when the playoffs start.
You better believe it. Yep. So a couple teams with some good wins with Imhotep we just mentioned. North Allegheny, they beat St. Francis Academy of Maryland just by 2, but a win's a win when you're playing a really good team. We'll move on to 5A here, and every team in 5A won. The Roman Catholic won big over Newman Goretti, who's a good, I believe, 3A team. Newman Goretti. Chester, big win over Perkiomen Valley. McDevitt, of course, new in 5A. Garnett Valley, Manheim Central over West Philly. Woodland Hills beat McDowell. We just mentioned that one. And Erie Cathedral Prep, who's kind of taken some years off here from dominating in the state. There was a time where the last time I think they won a state championship was when they beat McDevitt pretty convincingly, but that was like 6 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a while back. In 4A, Aliquippa was idle. Wyomissing, they beat Southern Columbia. I don't think that's a surprise. I think, as good as Southern Columbia is, I mean, it's easy to get outclassed when you're a 2A school and playing a good 4A program, good 4A team. That's what happens a lot of times, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to go back to Chester real quick because I honestly, I think what Chester has been doing is nothing short of phenomenal. I'm really happy for them because when you think of Chester Clippers, you always think of basketball, Pennsylvania basketball, and what they're doing in football is phenomenal. I'm really happy for them and glad to see them playing so well the last few years and sending kids on to the next level as well.
Yeah, they're kind of just getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. It hasn't happened all overnight, and they've had some tough losses like late in the year or in the postseason. But that's what happens when you're just starting to put yourself on the map.
Mm-hmm.
There are high hopes for Chester this year for sure. They're preseason ranked number 3 by my friend Eric Epler from Penn Live, and he does a pretty darn good job. So if they're not number 3, they're right around there somewhere. And I'm glad that you brought them up because. Yeah, I watch them. They have a live stream for their games, and I watch as many of their games as I'm able to. So let's see here. 4A, Bell Vernon moved up. They're always going to be good. And we don't really have we have, Susquehanna Township certainly not ranked, but the only team from our area that's in there is Wyomissing, and they're never not good. That's for sure.
That's right. It's always solid,
Yep.
Well coached.
Move on to 3A. Central Valley, ranked number 1, lost to Montour, and you don't see that happen too often. Actually, the number 1 teams, Travis, this is interesting. The number 1 teams, preseason ranked number 1 teams in 3A, 2A, and 1A all lost.
Yeah, you can't. High school sports. I think what happens in high school sports when we rank teams from the previous season a lot of times with who they have coming back, obviously, but we always go by the skill positions.
Mm-hmm.
And as we discussed earlier, you can have great skill guys, but if you don't have those horses up front, there's not a whole lot those skill guys can do.
Right.
And when you run into a team who's really solid up front, they might be able to control the line of scrimmage on offense and run the ball at you and can keep your skill guys off the field. So,
right.
We'll say, okay, a guy they have a 3-star receiver and a 2-star, 3-star running back, and okay, they're returning. We're going to make them number 1, and really, are they really number 1? Because you don't know we really don't know the kids that are coming in, filling in for the kids who graduated. We don't know how good they are. So yeah, every high school team has holes because it's high school, right? You don't have. It's not like you're recruiting for specific positions or drafting for specific positions like you would in college or the NFL.
Yeah, and it's hard for everything to line up, for everything to come together. A lot of times you have the skill position players, but you don't have the front 7 guys or the guys up front. Mm-hmm. Other times it's the other way around. So, sometimes you got guys that just aren't ready in the first couple weeks of the season.
That's right.
And by week 5 or 6,
that's right.
Yeah.
And it comes and great coaches adjust. I remember, I think of Emery Cook when he won a state championship at Susquehanna Township of basketball. I don't think he had a guy over 6'2" or 6'3". They're all like the same size.
Right.
But it's not like college where you're going to have a true center, a true power forward, or this and that. But great coaching, a lot of time you can overcome some of that stuff.
Correct. Yep.
And that's what Emery Cook did.
Yes. So anyway, 3A, Scranton Prep had a nice win against 4A number 6 Valley View. And again, we're not going to get into this a whole lot because this is I don't want to just stand here and be a bag of wind. There's a lot of these teams that I'm not real familiar with, but Southern Columbia, they're looking for their 8th straight state championship.
Yeah, that's
Travis. I don't think it's a bad loss at all. I think they lost like at least 3 games 2 years ago and ended up winning the state championship. They couldn't really, they weren't able to get on track early on, and then they did, and they won. But 3 of the top 4 teams in 3A, or I'm sorry, in 2A, Southern Columbia, Steel Valley, and Bald Eagle area all lost. And then go down to Farrell at rank number 5, lost as well, and they lost to number 6 Hickory in 3A. So these teams played some really tough games. Steel Valley lost to Clareton. Clareton supposedly back.
Yes, that's a lot of. I see a lot of teams are opening up. They're not opening up with a game that's easily winnable, and they're opening up with tough competition. But I'm gonna go back to Southern Columbia. 8 straight state championships. They're like the Kansas City Chiefs to me right now. I don't care how many games they lose, as long as they get in the playoffs. That's who I'm going to go after to win the state championship until someone knocks them off.
They kind of have a formula. Kansas City has like a formula right now. They just figured out what works. You always lose personnel, and in high school you lose them to college, or they graduate. In NFL you lose them to whatever free agency. But once that formula is kind of developed and put into place, it becomes a little bit easier to just kind of say, okay, we know what we have to do now. We have the off season to get ready for next year. And Southern Columbia is able to do that, year in and year out.
Something's telling me they're going to be okay.
Yeah, something's telling me the same. And the only area team that we have in 2A that's been talked about a little bit, Camp Hill. I don't think it was a bad loss. They lost to Lancaster Catholic 42-41 in 2 overtimes. And that's kind of one of those games that's going to get them ready for their Mid-Penn Capital Division schedule. That Mid-Penn Capital Division has taken on a whole new a total facelift. They basically took the Liberty Division and added Steel High and Camp Hill, and that's what the new Capital Division is. But supposedly Camp Hill is going to be good.
Oh, they had a great run last year. And I suspect they're going to do the same thing this year. They're just a solid program.
Won a district championship last year. And then 1A, just loads of really good teams in 1A. Westinghouse lost. Now, they went in without their best player.
Yeah, they had a bad injury.
Tyshawn Robinson.
Out for the season. Now, they should have beat Southern Columbia last year, but
98 yards. I watched it.
Yeah, I watched it too. I was
and they had multiple opportunities if they just make this play, and they didn't make it. And then it happened again.
They got a penalty. They had a penalty on 4th down and gave Southern Columbia a 1st down.
I think that might have been a little questionable too. And I usually don't question the refs because a lot of them are my friends, but I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't. But Tyshawn Robinson is he's the number 8 ranked prospect in the whole state of Pennsylvania. He's a 4-star D-back with offers from Ohio State, Penn State, FSU, and more. He's out for the season. Hip injury. You don't see a lot of hip injuries with kids that age. It's usually, of course, knees and shoulders and stuff like that. But, we wish him well. I'm sure Westinghouse has plenty of athletes left, but they got, Fort Cherry's returned a lot of players. Bishop Guilfoyle, Clareton, who we just mentioned. It's going to be interesting in 1A. I don't think there's a Steel High now, those last 4 years. And I think they would have won 4 in a row if they would have had their one player that transferred to East.
That was special. That group of kids from Steel High, because what a lot of people don't realize is those kids. A lot of times you might have you can win 4 state championships, but they were winning with the same kids. That core group of kids. I was on the field in Hershey when they won that first one during the COVID year, and so I was superintendent at the time, and those kids were freshmen. And those are the same kids that were seniors who won last year. Phenomenal group.
Yeah.
You got like a Jayon Perry who, he was a freshman undersized linebacker, one of the top tacklers in the state in the mid pen. He was the top tackler team as a freshman. Then he moves to defensive back later on in his career. And you have some kids, solid kids, and good kids too. Really,
Absolutely.
really, really good class kids. Class kids.
I think Coach Irby, what you see is what you get out of him. I mean, he does a lot with us. He does like interviews and stuff like that with us, and he's so impressive when he's talking. And when I hear the stuff that he's talking about, and this is off-field stuff, this is locker room stuff, this is grades and being a upstanding citizen stuff, I believe it because you see those kids, they do well outside of football. They go on to college, a lot of them, and I'm glad Coach Irby stuck around. I don't think he probably ever had an inkling that he wasn't going to. I don't know what happens in other people's homes, but he's got 2 sons now playing college football. But I'm glad that he stuck around because I think he's going to win some games this year, Travis.
Oh well, yeah. You I think they won 63-0 at halftime yesterday.
Yeah, so. Yeah. They ended up 69-0. So
I think was a good thing. It was a classy on Coach Irby's part.
Which who else did that? Coach Jerry Yanchuk from Central York. He kind of took his foot off the throttle against Central Dauphin. That was 44-0 at halftime. And that game, I don't really want to get into it a whole lot, but they are 2 programs heading in different directions right now.
Yeah,
and one season can change a lot, but Central York, they are on a path that is loaded with success, loaded with great athletes. And Central Dauphin hasn't won a postseason game since they lost in the state championship game 5 years ago. And so I don't know precisely what's going on with Central Dauphin, but I know that they don't have many athletes right now.
Yeah, I was really surprised at that outcome. I'm definitely not surprised Central York won the game. I'm not 44-0 at halftime. But again, first week, you don't know. You never know. Central Dauphin could, turn it around.
Yeah, they have.
I don't know what kind of athletes they have. Like, so I saw Cumberland Valley versus Manheim Township. I think watching them, I think they might have a little bit tougher time because I just don't see the athleticism, out there from Cumberland Valley against a very, very well coached Manheim Township team.
Boy, they look good, didn't they?
Solid. They're good. It's just it's a program. It's a good program.
Right.
I don't think they're it's only week 1, but I don't see them necessarily being as good as last year. But they're a good team, and they really took it to Cumberland Valley.
They get a lot of guys who go out, and just because you have numbers doesn't mean that you're going to be good. But they have 87 players, and I guess between freshmen and varsity, and that's a lot of guys to choose from. That's a lot of guys that are committing themselves to that program in Manheim Township for sure. So just Cedar Cliff 50, Redland 30. There's some question marks about how Cedar Cliff's going to kind of fit into the Commonwealth Division. And I talked to a friend who was an official, a referee, a game official at that, and he said that it was only a 1 touchdown lead for Cedar Cliff after 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And that Redland did not look too good at all. So Cedar Cliff probably has some growing up to do. It wasn't I guess a win's a win, but they didn't look too good for most of the game, I was told.
Well, one of the things that I remember, and I'd imagine it's still the same, when you're the first scrimmage, the first game, you kind of work out some of the kinks, but you actually move some kids around. You said, okay, I thought this kid was the one at right tackle. He's not the kid. I thought this kid was the middle linebacker. He's not the middle linebacker. So you start seeing some different faces. So you just never know what's going to happen next week. I think some teams will settle down after next week, and we'll see some different things from some of these teams. And
Coach Cole Gillen at Cedar Cliff, he's a good coach. He's had a lot of success, but you're right. I mean, you can think that what your team's going to look like, and all bets are off until you go out there and play that first game. Really, you've played sports, you have an idea, and sometimes you were totally wrong.
That's right.
Man, we're better than I thought we were. Or, man, we have a lot of work to do here.
Because when the lights come on, it's a little different. Game speed is a little different,
Correct. Yep. Hershey 28, Milton Hershey 0 in the Cocoa Bowl. I'm just going to mention that. We're not going to get into that. Cedar Crest 45, Lower Dauphin 16. Lower Dauphin was picked by a handful of people to win the Keystone Division this year. I know they're playing up 1 classification, but if if they lost by 29 to Cedar Crest, that means that there's some other teams in the Keystone Division that probably are going to have a good chance too. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so let's go to how do you like that these divisions? They folded the Liberty. Okay, they went from 5 to 4 divisions, and they kept all the teams and they put them into 4. Um, the Commonwealth division, Travis, and the Keystone, they're heading right into their league schedule. I personally, I liked some of those non-league games that became
Yes.
rivalries. You know, um, CD they used to play like Manheim Township and Wilson every year, and man, that it became rivalries. And they weren't even in the same in the same county as these teams, but now it's over with. Now you jump right in there. What do you think of that?
Yeah, you think about it, Harrisburg, what became a nice little rivalry, Harrisburg and Mannheim playing,
Yes.
early in the season. Harrisburg has been playing. They played York and Mannheim last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had a game against several years ago. They had a game against Emotep.
I think they had two. I think they had two, didn't they, or just one?
I remember the one. I remember
they beat them. I know they beat
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't have those. I do like the out of conference games. I'm not a bit. I'm okay with the folding of the condensing and having less divisions. I'll say this. I don't think it's necessarily fair to Steel High. Because first of all, there's not many single A schools in the state. They're making them play double A, and they are. Let's be honest, they're a single A school. I don't think it's really fair to them.
Yeah, I don't like it. You get kind of, I don't know if penalized is the right word, but I think it works. You get penalized for being successful, and I think there's a lot of people that are kind of up in arms about it. They don't, and it's not just Steel High. There's teams around the state that they're getting forced into situations where, especially when you're a smaller school like that, and I don't know how much difference it makes from 4A to 5A or 5A to 6A, but when you're a 1A school and then you're asked to move up to, maybe play a team like Southern Columbia, who might have 55 kids on their sideline, that can make a difference, Travis.
Yeah, I don't think Steel High's had more than 35 kids on a roster in probably 10 years.
No way. Some years it's 23 or 24. I count them. When I go to a Steel High game, I count them. And sometimes it's 23, 24,
Yeah, what the PIAA is saying, you're graduate, okay, the kids who are playing now, we're going to hold you accountable for the kids who graduated success.
Mm-hmm.
And it does. I have some colorful words for it, but I think it's just wrong.
Yeah, that's actually a great way of looking at it. Yeah. The ones who are moving in and playing up higher probably had very little or nothing at all to do with the success that caused them to have to play up higher. So let's kind of close this down here, and we don't have to slam on the brakes, but what do you look forward to this year in high school football? Harrisburg area high school football, statewide, is there any teams that you think that may be any better this year? Or?
Well, I think it's going to be very interesting to see who wins the Commonwealth. Based on week 1, I'm going to say McDevitt. You have to make McDevitt the favorite.
I agree.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Harrisburg comes in next week and looks a complete 180. Don't be surprised if you see that. I'm not saying they are, but don't be surprised if you see that. But I also want to see. I want to see if anyone can kind of knock St. Joe's Prep off their square.
Well, what you hear is that this is one of their down years. Now they've won state championships in down years, but I've also heard, and when I say down, I mean younger personnel. They lost a lot to graduation, but I also heard that they got one heck of a defense. That's Anthony Sacca is, a top 3 or 5 prospect in the whole state. And one player he's a linebacker. One player doesn't make a defense, but I think that they're going to be a very, very stingy defense, and they're going to be hard to beat.
Well, defense will keep you in games. Will keep you in games. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I think one of the things I'm most kind of excited about is Susquehanna Township. I like the fact. Well, I like Coach Heed to begin with. I just think he's an awesome guy. But I just like the fact that they went from 0-10 to 6-5 to 7-4, and now they might be the favorite to win the district. Them or Wyomissing, and it means he didn't. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, man? They're just taking a bite at a time over there, and he gets his guys to buy in. And I mean, I have to. He's not the only coach, but I think his guys really love him over there.
I think one of the things that shows you have some of the guys that play from coming back on that staff right now, who are really dedicated to the program and dedicated to the kids of Susquehanna Township. So I think that's impressive. I'll tell you this: if it does end up being a Wyoming Susquehanna Township district championship, that'll be worth the price.
Ooh, wait, that certainly will. So that's a good opportunity for me to remind those folks at home who are watching. Hopefully, we have some that we will have our weekly podcast. It's called Gazette Sports Chat. This is kind of not that podcast. This is just an extra one because we're into the regular season now. But we will have Coach Joe Heaton and Lex Cyrus, his I guess wide receiver. He's probably wears a lot of hats on that team, and center Mason Lubold, and that's Tuesday at 7, right here on Gazette Sports. That's okay. That's all right, Travis. Yeah, you can. I have a dog too. Believe me.
He saw another dog outside.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about that. So I mean, there's a lot of reason for excitement. East High is going to be better. I know that for a fact.
I'm excited about. I want to see them. I want to see what they look like going through the course of the season. Yeah.
So Travis, thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate.
That was a good time, man. We just met a couple of days ago. That was seamless. That wasn't hard to do at all. And
it's a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same as we were doing on the field the other day. Just talking football. So you have an open invitation. I mean, we can fill this screen up with 3 or 4 guys and just kind of go at it roundtable style. Maybe we'll get Eric Thomas next week, but we're going to start doing this Sundays at 6. And just know that you're welcome to join us any Sunday that we do it, for sure.
Oh, just let me on. No. If I can get on, if I can jump on, I'll definitely jump on.
Okay, cool. All right, so let me thank the sponsors one more time before we shut it down here. These are our Littlestown Gazette Sports Platinum sponsors, and they are Rickaba's Electric, Larry Bragg at Payer Apparel. Larry, thanks. We got some T-shirts for the guys from Susquehanna Township that we're going to give them. Ted's Bar and Grill, Freedom Financial Wealth Management, Tonino's Pizza, Crystal Bob, at Howard Hanna Real Estate, Team PA AAU basketball program. Thanks to Greg Cavoli there. He's been with us for a number of years now. He's very committed to the area's student athletes. Sam Hartley Decking, American Legion Post 272, Hoffman Ford, the Tire Modern Imprint, Capital Region Insurance Agency, and Underdog Sports Bar and Grill. Thanks to all those local businesses. So for Travis Waters, I'm Joe Gillaway. Check us out on Tuesday, and then we'll be back next Sunday at 6 o'clock to do a Week 2 high school football wrap up. Thank you, Travis.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.